Welcome to our board meeting on September 29th. And we have a full schedule tonight. We're going to try to keep this as timely as possible. We have a lot of important things as normal that we have to go through. And we'll do them as expeditiously as we can. And we'll start with Tessa to making sure we stay on time.
Thank you so much, Steve. Before we start this evening, I just want to mention a couple of housekeeping items for the membership. We received a lot of emails this past week and few days since we posted the agenda and the notice for tonight's meeting. There have been a lot of questions surrounding the different documents and policies and items that the board is going to be reviewing and voting upon. And I know many of you want all of the details of those things that are happening. But the reality is the membership has elected this board to make the decisions for this community. And there are times when it's appropriate for the membership to be involved in that voting process and require a 2/3 vote to make some standard changes. There's also a lot of situations where policies and procedures and processes and rules can be established and developed and adopted that don't require the membership approval, and it's strictly a board vote. And at those times, there may be times where we do distribute that information, but for the most part, those really are going to be materials that are reviewed by the board and approved by the board. So, for those of you that have emailed me, please understand that is something that is kind of a community-wide situation. This is very normal for an HOA. I know it's hard. A lot of us come from the business world where we're used to reviewing documents and being involved in that. But that's why you've elected these 7 individuals to represent your community. And they have in turn appointed, a number of groups and committees and other members from your community that volunteer to represent you in different areas. So in terms of situations simply like the documents and the landscape standards and the community standards, those documents are not just being reviewed by the board, but they're being reviewed by a number of different groups and committees here within Esplanade. And all of those individuals are representing all of you in making those proposed changes. So I just want to make sure everybody understands, the proper flow, and also just want to mention, it's been a little bit different with COVID. This kind of online virtual meeting is certainly a different situation, not just for all of you, but for us. We do want to continue, obviously, while we're doing these virtual meetings, to allow questions through the YouTube chat section during the meeting. But eventually, once we get back to our regular meetings where we can invite all of you in to come to the meetings, once we get back to that point, the comments and questions, are going to be more in accordance with statute, where you have an opportunity either at the beginning of the meeting or at some point during the agenda designated by the board to make your comments and have your 2 or 3 minutes to make your statement to the board before they discuss matters. it's been a little bit more flexible with the COVID situation and the virtual meetings. But at the end of the day, this really truly is a board meeting. It's not a membership meeting. And so really, once we call to order, it's really important for the board to be able to stay on task and not to have the constant interruption. And we understand for now that's just how we have to function. But eventually, we're going to move away from that and go back to our regular standard comments, either at the beginning of the meeting or at some point on the agenda that will be set in advance. So just wanted to kind of put that out there for everybody, make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of what they can expect from this board and from your management team. You know, at the end of the day, you've elected this board to make the decisions for your community, and this board has hired Icon Management to execute and carry out those decisions. So that's how we'll continue to proceed. And when appropriate, of course, we'll share with you what's necessary and when it's timely to do so. With that said, we do have, our proof of notice was posted in accordance with statute over the weekend. It was also emailed out. And we do have a quorum of all of the directors present here this evening, so we can go ahead with our meeting. And I believe, Chris, you're going to start us off with the treasurer's report? Yes? No? Budget stuff?
I think we're going to defer the treasurer's report because of so many items today.
Okay.
I'll cover that at the next week's meeting as part of the budget process, so that way you get everything together at one stage, please.
And we're going to do the
golf.
the golf instead, the golf topics?
Yes, that we had a little conversation. Chris and I thought that with the agenda that we have, we will give. He'll give his treasury report next time, just before the rest of that meeting, which will be next Wednesday. So let's move with golf, and who's first?
All right, Sandy. Actually, Chris is going to kick us off. Oh, all right. Lots of change here. Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks a lot, everyone. What we're trying to do is get ready, kind of fix some points in the 2021 budget process. And that's start of the journey. Instead of doing everything in one day, which will be too many things, we thought we'll break up some of that and get some of that in front of you today. The first part of the thing is there's been, we have covered it during the golf meetings between Sandy and me on in terms of what are the requirements of how golf assessments are calculated. I thought I'll reinforce that for 2021 budget and get to actually and say how it's going to be done, okay? So that's what I'm going to share with you. For those of you that have seen at the golf meeting, I had a slide because we can't talk of the finances on golf without telling you what the declarations say. So here are the three items that are very critical from declarations when you talk of golf assessments. The first is a definition of golf property. And I'll go into that in a little bit of a detail so that everybody can see what the golf property is and what is the basis as we go into 2021 budget. The second item in the declarations, it clearly states revenues from the operation of the golf property shall be part of the budget for the club property and shall be used to offset operating expenses of the club. That's the exact wording that we duplicated. So I'm just telling you that's what we're going to follow. Third item relates to expenses. All expenses related to operation and maintenance of the golf property shall be allocated equally among all the golf members. There's a small exception. What I wanted to share with you was, because these were there and there were a lot of questions coming from the membership, this year we went to our HOA attorney and said, here's the process, how we are applying. Based on these three requirements, could you confirm to us whether we are following these as required in the declarations? So we did get a written opinion in that process. And I'll tell you a little bit. As part of the process, when we went through the legal opinion, we found something else. And I'll share that with you, which will become part of the budget process for this year. So these are the three declarations that are critical in terms of determining how the assessments are going to get calculated. And the board has to operate within these restrictions because that's what the Florida statutes require us to do. Okay. Next one, on the golf property, what is the proposed change from now just to the 2021 budget. Okay, I'm showing you in this slide all the golf property details, and it has 4 columns. The 3 across are, the first column is 2016 to 2019. The next is 2020, and what is the proposal for 2021. You see all the items are the part of the golf property, and you saw on the last slide, the declarations clearly say the pro shop is not part of the golf property as decided in the declarations. We made that change in 2020, and that's the basis right now. What we're proposing, another change to the golf property for a couple of reasons. That is really food and beverage cart sales, is to remove them from the golf and put them into food and beverage. Accounting wise, it's a lot simpler to do just by putting them in food and beverage, because they share costs of goods, they share manpower, they share revenue kind of things. And ICON has been recommending to us from day one, as they come in, let's put beverage cart sales in food and beverage and not in golf, and keep all. Let's not spend all this effort in trying to separate all these things just for the sake of golf. So that's the proposal that we're going to ask the board, as this is done, to whether they agree with it or not, is to move the food and beverage cart sales from the golf property into the club property is one change. So some of you are thinking, what's the impact of that, really? The impact is very minimal financial impact to golf or HOA assessments by doing this. The revenue already comes into HOA, the cost of goods are subtracted from the revenue. The only change is the lease costs for the golf cart. That'll move from golf property to the HOA side. I think it's about $300 a month for those of you that are concerned if that's a big. So it's a minimal thing in terms of doing this. So that's the first change that's being requested. The second one, as I told you, as part of the review of the legal discussion, we have come across in the legal review an applicable Florida statute that really applies to how we are determining the assessments in golf. So we thought we'll share that with you. This statute, I gave you the number, it's 720, which is the HOA statutes, 308, and item is the 6, which is applicable to developing our golf budget. This statute clearly states expenses incurred in the production of non-assessment revenue, not in excess of the non-assessment revenue, shall not be included in the operating expenses. I mean, it's very clear. It says if you have non-assessment revenue that's coming in and there are expenses associated with the non-assessment revenue, you can't put those expenses into operating expenses. They're saying you should subtract those expenses from the revenue, really. That's the sole thing. This is only for non-assessment revenue. So in golf, what is the non-assessment revenue? And I gave you 6 of them. There's one that's missing, which should be lessons, that I will add into this list. So first one is non-member green fees is non-assessment revenue. Member cart fees is non-assessment revenue. Merchandise sales are non-assessment revenue. Range fee, golf club rentals, and golf bag storage. And one last item is golf lessons. These are all non-assessment revenue coming into golf. So all this statute is saying is if you have directly known expenses for these sources of revenue, keep them separated and subtract them from operating expenses. Okay, that's what the statute is really saying. So I'll give you a little bit more detail for each of these items in the next slide. Just bear with me on this slide. I put in all the categories there in terms of it. Member cart fees, merchandise, range fee, club rentals, and so on. Then I gave you in the next column, really, what is the budget revenue? We are at Rev 1 right now, so that won't be the final revision. It'll be probably Rev 3 kind of a thing when we get to the final revision. But to give you an example, I'm using the numbers from the last revision of the budget as we are going through. So member cart fees, I have used the existing rate for this part of the presentation, okay, at the $23, and we'll come and talk about that the next time. But I just used that to get these numbers. The merchandise revenue from the sales is about $150,000. The range is about $30,000. Golf club rentals is about $10,000. Bag storage is about $26,000. Non-member green fee is about $520,000. Okay, that adds up to roughly $1.5 million. So what are the expenses directly associated with these things? In member cart fees, it's very straightforward. It's really the cart leases for the 75 carts. That is direct expense associated with the member cart fees, which is roughly $105,000 for the 75 carts with the GPS. And then the charging costs of electricity for the carts, which is done every day, that's about $15,600. Okay, so those are the expenses associated with it. You will see if you add those two up, they're significantly lower than the revenue generated, because the statute says you can only take expenses that are less than the revenue. You know, if it crosses the revenue, you can't do anything about it at that stage. Merchandise, the expenses are about $104,000. That's the cost of goods or purchase of the merchandise. I have not put some expenses for golf club rentals because we're working on it, because the clubs are purchased every 2 to 3 years. So those costs, we're just checking and see where they're getting allocated right now, so to get the right number in there. The only other major expense is the non-member green fee. We have simplified the process on how to calculate this. All we did was take the entire golf operating costs, which are about roughly $950,000, subtract from it all the costs above, which I've already outlined, okay, which is about $225,000 roughly, okay, between the 105 for cart leases, 15 for electricity, and 104,000 for cost of goods sold. If you subtract that from the total golf costs, operating costs, and then multiply that by the ratio of non-member rounds to total rounds. We are just ratioing it because it becomes a simple thing than trying to break all the stuff like we're doing this year. We're trying to simplify that process. In this example, they equate to about $148,000, okay? So if you add up all the expenses, it's roughly, in this example, this is not exactly into the budget. I'll give you the budget numbers next week. It says roughly about $373,000. That amount will not be part of the golf assessment out of the operating costs. So out of the 950, you have subtract the 372. So that will give the operating cost, and then you add all the maintenance costs, and then those two sums are used to determine the golf assessments at that stage. So I just wanted to share this approach with you. From my perspective, it's a lot simpler approach. It's a lot straightforward. So, and you know, this is one point where there's been a lot of some heated discussion on the cart fees. This probably, if it's agreed, this addresses some of that, saying that the cart fees are now really expenses that are not in the golf assessments at that stage. So somebody might ask, how does that number compare with this year? 2020 budget, the cost of goods sold that we have budgeted this year is $437,000. Okay, for this year. So this is lower than what we budgeted for this year in terms of that. So my motion to the board here is, I'm going to request that they approve the change in the golf assets, so that the food and beverage cart is not part of golf assets, and also approve the process on how golf assessments are going to be calculated. Not the exact numbers would come next week at the golf meeting, but approve the process of how we are calculating the golf assessment.
I second the motion.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Now for discussion. Do we have discussion? If none, let's vote.
Let's give it just a second since we have a delay.
Okay? So there's no further discussion. Let's vote. All those in favor signify aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next subject.
So we're still on golf topics, and we're going to Sandy now.
Thanks, Tessa. That was a great setup for my presentation, Krish, thank you. So what I'm going to take you through now is the 2021 golf proposal. And what's included in the proposal are the non-member golf rates, golf fees, related policies, golf privileges, and maintenance closures for 2021. So for those of you who were at the presentations last week, I talked a lot about this in the presentation, and this carries through in terms of the guiding principles that we looked at when we were developing the rates and some of the related policies. And so overall, we need to protect the value of a golf membership, protect the value of the golf course, protect the value of our bundled community, and provide equitable and balanced solutions across all stakeholders. So with that in mind, I'll take you first through the golf rates methodology. And we analyzed and evaluated the golf rate methodologies over the last several months and the assumptions from the golf group, from ICON, and board members. And I want to give a big shout out to the golf group for all of the work that they put in to developing the proposal that they sent to the board, and also to ICON as well. We also took in to consideration the community feedback and survey results as we developed the final proposal. So as I go through the rate schedule, just some things that to keep in mind that are part of the proposal. The golf member cart rates you will not see addressed in this proposal. That, as Krish mentioned, we will manage in our budget meeting next week. The categories that we came up with are golf member guest, club member, original resident member, transfer, renter, public, reciprocals, and Suncoast. And through this, we align the rates for golf member guest, renter, club member, and original resident member. You'll see separate lines on the rate sheet for club members and ORMs to be consistent with the way that our declarations are written. We also looked in this proposal to eliminate low value rounds in all of the seasons. And that includes internet discount specials, as well as ICON will look to secure higher value rounds through email blasts from their internal database in the low season based on availability. We will continue the Suncoast card users in the low season, summer only. We will continue reciprocals in the low season only. And we will disincentivize public play in high season through limited tee time availability and significant rate increases. So we also changed the seasons in 2021 to high, which we extended. That will now be January through April. Mid, which will be May plus October through December. Low, which will be June through September. And we also eliminated the twilight period and will now have 2 rate breaks, morning and afternoon after 1. So this is a look at the rate schedule. Again, the golf member line, which would typically be where we put the cart fees, that will be, again, discussed and decided next week. Golf member guests, and you'll see as you go down, golf member guest, club member, and original resident member, those rates are aligned for all seasons. So in the high season, those rates will be 89 in the morning, 79 in the afternoon, with a 9-hole rate of 49 and 39 in the afternoon. In the mid-season, club member rate will be 69 in the morning, 59 in the afternoon, 39 in the morning for 9 holes, and 35 in the afternoon for 9 holes. In the low season, the club member rate will be $39 in the morning, the afternoon rate will be 29, and the 9-hole rate will be 25 and 20. And I'm not going to go through each one of those lines, just you'll see as you look at this table, the golf member guest, club member, original resident member, and transfer member, those rates across the sheet are all now aligned to be consistent. Moving to club member guest rate, in the high season, January through April, that rate will be $99 in the morning, $89 in the afternoon. The 9-hole rate will be $59 in the morning, $49 in the afternoon. And in the mid-season, $79 in the morning, $69 in the afternoon. 9 holes, $49 in the morning, $45 in the afternoon. And in the low season, $49 in the morning, $39 in the afternoon. The 9-hole rate will be $29, and the afternoon rate will be $25. Looking at reciprocals, as you see the grayed out area across the high season and the mid season, we will not have reciprocals. They will only be permitted in the low season, and the reciprocal rate will be $40, and that's one rate in the morning and the same rate in the afternoon. The reciprocal guest rate will be $45 in the morning and $45 in the afternoon. And Suncoast, to be determined. I had a conversation with Aaron, and we're going to leave that to ensure that we're competitive. That rate could increase next summer. So Aaron will determine what that rate is, but it will not be less than the $40 reciprocal rate. And then as you see, the public is grayed out. And again, the goal is to disincentivize public play in the high season. And so we will do that with the 18-hole rate will be $149. The afternoon rate would be $139. However, you'll see when I get to the Chelsea conversation, they will not have access to the Chelsea system in the high season. In the mid-season, May plus October through December, the 18-hole rate will be $99 in the morning, $89 in the afternoon for the public. And in the low season, $69 in the morning, $59 in the afternoon, with a 9-hole rate of $38 in the morning and $30 in the afternoon. We also are adding a walking rate. Golf members only will be allowed to walk, and it will be $5 per round all season. Driving range fees, golf members will be $5 all season. Club members and original resident members will be $10 low and mid seasons only. And the bag storage fee, which will be available only for golf members, will be $160 a year. The walking times will be determined based on the season and availability by the Director of Golf, Aaron Merritt. In terms of golf-related policies, with the tee time system, which is Chelsea, or if we move to a new system to be determined by Icon, in the high season, again, our goal here was to optimize golf member access as we have more and more limited availability with more and more homes closing. So for golf members, they will have access from 14 days prior, 14 to 5 days prior to tee time. So they will submit, as they do in the Chelsea lottery system, and the lottery will be placed 7 days in advance, and then golf members will have an additional 2 days prior to tee time to make any changes or add new bookings. The club members will have 5 days, along with golf members at that point, prior to tee time to make bookings. And during the high season, the original resident members and the public will have no tee time access. In the mid and low season, golf members will have, again, the lottery system from 14 days until the tee sheet is placed, 7 days in advance of the tee time. And then club members will have 7 days, along with golf members, prior to the tee time to make any new bookings or to make any changes. And original resident members and the public in the mid and low seasons will have 5 days in the Chelsea system prior to tee time. And at that time, golf members and club members can also make changes. We also defined space available as we discussed during the golf presentations, and space available is defined as tee time availability, which is access to the tee sheet based on membership or golfer type. Tee time intervals will be set at 9 minutes pending COVID-19 restrictions and phases. Right now, we've still been at 11 minutes. So we'll continue to evaluate that based on COVID, but if things go back to normal, so-called normal, they'll go to 9-minute tee times in the season. We also defined golf member privileges, priority access to online tee time reservation system, complimentary gin handicap service, access to bag storage for an annual fee, member golf events and leagues, Golf Genius scoring, and reciprocal golf privileges. Looking at golf maintenance closures for 2021, we will have 2 5-day maintenance closings, one in June and one in August, and those dates to be determined by Mickey Subotic, our golf superintendent. And the course will be closed for maintenance every other Monday, starting in June and ending the beginning of September, with the exception of the Monday before and after the August maintenance. So, based on the information that I shared, I move that we approve the 2021 non-member golf rates, golf fees, golf member privileges, related golf policies, and maintenance closures as outlined in the presentation with an effective date of January 1st, 2021.
Sandy, I second the motion.
We have a motion and we have a second. Do we have discussion?
I have some questions for this.
Okay.
On the 2020 golf rates, one of my questions is that club member rate is equal to a golf member guest. I just don't think that someone that lives here should be paying and supports the community for however long they're here, whether it be 6 months or 365 days, should pay the same as someone that's coming in maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year. I just don't think that's right. I'm also trying to figure out how Orms, of which I am one, and we have no golf privileges here, and it states it in the declarations, how we are coming up with a fee for them. The other thing is, it talks about transfer renter. In our declarations, it states that a golf member owner can give his membership to a tenant or a renter that is in his home. As such, the way the declarations, I read them, state that they get that golf member's privileges as well. And to have them paying more to the $89 in the high season is also wrong, because they have they're supposed to, in our declarations, get the exact same privileges.
Sandy, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so I'll try to remember your question.
I will go to the first one. Club member is equal to a golf member guest.
Got it. So when we looked at the comps and in our discussions with ICON, that's competitive and comparable to what we see in other clubs. There are also some privileges that golf members pay for. And so golf members should be able to bring their guests or family members staying in their home for a discounted rate.
I don't have a problem with that. I just have the problem that they come 5 or 6 times, where you have a club member that's here 365 that's frequenting all the things, and they're ending up paying more. The ORMs, we have no privileges. It states it in the declarations. How can ORMs play here? And I'm going to be honest, I have been told by golf members that I should not be playing here?
So we got clarification from Stephen Thompson, our legal counsel, that although we cannot give original resident members privileges, we can give them a golf rate to play here.
And the renter portion.
So the renter portion in the declarations, you can either transfer your privileges or you can keep your privileges and not give the privileges to a renter. The privilege is not the rate. So the privilege would be access to Chelsea and the other golf member privileges, but not the actual golf rate. And again, that's consistent when we looked at the comps of what other clubs are charging. That rate is consistent. The other piece of that, with rentals, oftentimes developers keep those rates lower. And if you look at the surrounding area and some of the courses that are not turned over, you will see the low renter golf rate. That's because they're still trying to drive rounds, they're still trying to drive revenue, and they're still trying to drive traffic to sell homes. That's not what we're trying to do. As we reach closer to build out, we are trying to more limit additional play in order to make tee times available for the potential 821 closed homes. Now, not all those are going to be playing golf, but we have a different mindset now versus turning over. But when you look at the comps for those communities that are turned over, we're right in the ballpark with what that rate is.
Okay. Can I continue with some of the questions I have? Okay. The walking rate. If club members have the ability to play here on an availability basis, why wouldn't they be allowed to walk if there was available times?
If there are available times, that's something that we looked at. However, we haven't really had available times, just given as of end of August this year, we're at 932 walking rounds. So we've had a lot of interest in walking. But that's something that we considered and discussed with ICON and limited availability on walking.
Pretty much the same question on the bag storage fee. If I don't know how many spots we have, but from what I understand, the last time we had them open before COVID came along, they all weren't taken. And from what I also understand, they were going to be putting more. Excuse me, they were going to be putting more in. So, if there was space available, would we allow club members to rent those spots?
That's something that we could look at. We are at capacity, even with the additional space that was added. That's my understanding from Aaron, that we really didn't have any additional capacity in the bag storage.
Last one. On the tee time system in Chelsea, my question is, if a club member goes into Chelsea 5 days out, and on the 8 a.m. time, there are 3 golf members playing, and there is an open spot, and he puts in for that spot on the 5th day after it's been after they filled out the tee sheet with golf members, could he take that spot, or is he relegated to something later in the day? I shouldn't say he or she. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so for club members, it's on a space available basis. So my understanding is yes, because the tee sheet would then be open for club members to book.
Okay. I forgot one. I'm sorry. I would suggest, along with the golf member privileges, we have a sheet that calls out club member privileges. Just to have it.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you.
Jim. Yes, thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Jim, for those questions. Actually, when I just had one comment when it comes to walkers, we're limited to golf members. I would also include golf member guests. If they have their son or daughter down visiting and they want to walk around, they can't go with their family member that's sitting at home. I would at least expand it to that for right now. Yeah. That's all. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Questions?
Ready for questions? Is there any other board discussion?
Just, Aaron, do you want to make any comments in regards to this, or you're okay? All right.
Okay. With that said, let me just scroll up to our questions here. So the first question comes from Jeffrey Clark. How do these rates compare to golf group recommendations?
So these rates are lower than the golf group's proposed rates. And that's based on, we reviewed all of the proposals along with ICON's input and developed these rates with their support.
Okay, thank you. Nancy Schneider commented, thank you so very much for adding the 9-hole rates for members.
You're welcome.
Mr. John Hermes, because golf members pay for the privilege and our guest fees should actually be less than club member fees. Not really a question, I guess, just a comment, but if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, so again, we looked at the comps in the local area and really in all of Southwest Florida as well. And the guest rate that we came up with is very competitive. It's roughly the same as what you'll find in all of the local area clubs in terms of a guest rate during season as well as mid and low seasons.
Thank you. Mr. Brad Klink stated, I don't disagree with John's statement above. As golf member, I know we should not have to pay more to bring a guest or family member than a club member would pay. Miss Lisa Harris is asking, please explain why charging a walking rate for golf while there are no fees to play tennis or pickleball.
I'll recommend that we charge a fee to play tennis or pickleball. I'm totally kidding. Let me take that back. We decided to implement a fee for walking just based on the high utilization that we've had, and there is a cost in terms of maintenance with the additional traffic, divots. It's not a significant fee, but it is something to cover some of those costs. Yes, Stephen.
I believe Icon actually had a higher fee.
And then the
And
last,
I would just add to that too, along the lines that you just said, Sandy, there is a displacement fee. You know, there is a displacement of revenue there. So, you know, the $5 fee is very minimal. All the points that you brought up, there is a fee associated. There is an expense out there with the grounds. But I also think it's worth adding that there is a displacement where I don't believe there's a displacement with pickleball and tennis.
Thanks, Bobby.
thank you. And then the last comment from Mr. Brad Klink also just states that he agrees with Mr. Gruber's comment.
Thank you.
Okay, it appears there's no further comments. So back to you, Steve.
Okay. We may have a motion. Sandy may want to amend the motion in regards to the guest walker for a club, for a golf member. That wasn't in the original. You may want to say per that and then add the walker guest as well.
Okay, so I will make that revision to add the golf member guest rate, and based on that, in the information I shared, I move that we approve the 2021 non-member golf rates, golf fees, golf member privileges, related golf policies, and maintenance closures as outlined in the presentation with an effective date of January 1st, 2021.
Second the motion.
Okay, now we have a first and second motion. Any further discussion before we vote?
We do have two more questions that popped up, so if we could answer those. We have a few. Karen Eckert is asking if Bobby could explain what he means by displacement.
Yeah, what I mean by displacement is a displacement of revenue. So if there's a foursome that are walking, they're paying $20 opposed to whatever the rate would be for 4 other paying guests. So it's what I meant by displacement was a displacement of revenue, where tennis and pickleball, there is no fees to play.
Thank you, Bobby. Randy Rubenstein is asking, can club members use the range in high season?
That's not part of this proposal unless it's prior to a tee time for warm-up.
Okay, thank you. Carrie Salm is asking, currently club members can bring guests at reduced fees. What is the guest fee for a club member if they are allowed to bring a guest?
I'm guessing that's for 2021 or for currently
Let's
2021.
stick with the 2021.
So the
since
club
that's-
member guest rate in season will be $99 in the morning for 18 holes, $89 in the afternoon, $59 in the morning for 9 holes, and $49 in the afternoon. Did he say season or all seasons? Let me just run through them real quick. $79 in the mid-season for 18 holes, $69 in the afternoon. The 9-hole rate's $49 in the morning, $45 in the afternoon. And in the low season, $49 for 18 holes in the morning, $39 in the afternoon. And for 9 holes, $29 in the morning, $25 in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. I think that takes care of our question, Steve.
Okay, any more discussion from here? If none, let's vote. All those in favor of the proposal signify by aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Next.
Do we have other golf topics to cover, or are we moving on to,
I think we're moving on to landscape. I don't believe there's any more golf topics.
are we going to talk about the?
Oh, wait, no.
Missed
No,
Aaron's
that
presentation?
becomes that's later. It's landscape next.
Where are we covering the, under the construction defect is where you want to cover that.
That's when that will happen.
Got it. Okay. So then, Alan, landscape for you.
Thank you. Good evening. So the recent SPG survey revealed that 78% of residents' dissatisfaction related to landscape issues of one sort or another. We listened. So the landscaping group, together with Eric and the rest of the ICON folks, worked on a lot of situations, coming up with solutions, and at the moment there were 3 items and topics that we're going to be proposing to handle the different issues. So the first one is lawn improvement. We spoke last meeting about the test of the 50 homes to address the sod and turf problems. If that's successful, we intend to roll that out next year to all homes, and the cost of that will be $42,750 or $45 per single family home. The next item is the quality of the services provided. So there's been a lack of follow-up, a lack of quality control over the landscaping that has been done. So what's being proposed is to hire a full-time ICON employee whose sole job will be to monitor the work performed by the contractors. So they'll make sure that everything that's in the contract is done and that the quality of what's done is up to standards. The cost of that, we estimate, will be $75,000 for this individual or $79 per single family home. The next is the actual contract itself. So the landscaping group working with Eric came up with a detailed RFP that's being used. And what we've done is expanded and enhanced the contract. So we're trying to keep, we have not received in all the bids from that, so we don't know what the cost will be finally. But our intention is to try to hold it to no more than a 20% increase over the current year's cost of $1,120 per home, or an increase of $224 per household. Just as a add-on, I'd just like to also remind you or just state, as much as that sounds like a big increase, the reality is there hasn't been an increase in the contractor's contract for the last 2 years. So add that to the fact that we're asking more of them. As much as it is, it's really not that bad. Some of the things that are included in that are they're doubling the amount of teams that are going to be doing the trimming and weeding. So a lot of people have been complaining that, hey, when are they trimming? They haven't been here. So all of those issues should be resolved with this new contract. Just on a personal level, I'd like to thank Nancy, Tom, and the whole landscape group for working with Eric and coming up with all these solutions, and they're all trying their best to make our lawns as nice as possible. So we listened and we addressed your issues, and hopefully this will address them.
Okay, so are you going to start back up with number 1 then and take one motion at a time here?
Yes.
Okay, so we can have our discussion between each one.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So I'd like to make a motion to implement the aeration program next year, subject to the test results of this year being successful, at a cost of $45 per home.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? We have Chris, a second. So we have a motion and second. So let's have discussion. Who wants to start the discussion? All right. First of all, I'd like to make a comment first in the discussion phase. Oh, no, not for this one, for the next one. We're okay. So, Dick, you want to comment?
Just a question, Al. It's really not for you, Alan. It's more for, I think, for Eric at this point, because he's kind of leading the aeration project right now,
Yep.
right? Okay, so Eric, so what is the determining factor? What are you using to gauge the success of the aeration project? Because that seems to me like a very hard thing to determine, especially when going out of rainy season, how much good we've done with the aeration program.
Based on the soil sample we're going to be taking in December, will give us the results we're looking for as far as where we are compared to where we were when we took our first soil sample. And we'll also be able to, from those test results, we'll be able to test, is the applications that we're using actually, getting into the soil, enhancing the root growth and everything.
Dick, just to supplement that, it's my understanding that each of the 50 test homes were photographed, so that at the end of the growing season, when they go back to see the results, they'll take other photographs, and physically you'll just be able to determine looks bad, looks good.
Okay.
Aside from the more scientific approach.
So it sounds like and maybe I misunderstood the aerification program. I understood it to be twofold. Number one, it's going to help the root system of the grass, but number two, it was going to help with drainage. So what you've described is going to be easy to tell if the grass is healthier and improved, but are we going to be able to determine if it's actually helped with the drainage?
I think, I think in areas where the water is currently sitting, where it's promoting a lot of the fungus growth, I think we'll definitely be able to see a difference in those areas, and especially in between homes in back of homes and some of the front of the homes. I definitely think we'll start to see less weed growth, and it'll promote, just having the oxygen going into the soil will promote more of the zoysia growth and cut back on the weed growth.
Krish?
Thank you. I think to build on really what Dick has said, I think it's a suggestion that you develop the criteria for success now. So here are the criteria that says this test has been successful, and measure versus those criteria. Don't wait till the end to say what the criteria are. Define what the criteria are right now, and then measure against that criteria to say, have we succeeded in the test or not, please.
All right, do we have any other comments about this particular facet?
No comments on this particular section as of yet, but there is a comment that some of us are mumbling, so if we could speak more clearly into the microphone so that we can be better understood.
That's good. All right. Any further questions without mumbling? If none, then let's vote. Those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Alan, you still have the floor.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we hire an individual whose job will be to be the quality assurance person for our landscaping.
We have a motion. We have a second. Let's have some discussion. I'll start it and try not to mumble. So, is this person, what are the qualifications? I will look at ICON because if this passes, it's going to be ICON's responsibility to fill this. So this is a person that's going to be responsible for the landscape operation and production of what happens out there. So from ICON's, I may have to ask a question to ICON. Do you have such an individual, and what is the profile requirements for the job?
So this individual sole responsibility would be for accountability of the contract, and also, he would have some background in education in turf, plant, and landscaping, just landscape experience, and preferably in a HOA setting. He would hold the landscaper and be on a like kind of a daily a rotation with him.
Would this person be responsible for the landscaping, and you will not be responsible for the landscaping? Is that what will happen?
I will assist in any way I can, but he'll be solely responsible for the landscaping.
Would this person be reporting to the golf superintendent? Who would this person, because it's agronomy, the question I have is not only what the responsibilities are, but what's the reporting relationships? You want to answer that, Bobby?
So just to go back to your original question, Steve, we do have a candidate in mind with that kind of agronomy background. But if this does pass, I think we would do our due diligence and open up the rec and do interviewing to see what other candidates we do have. But again, we do have someone on staff on the agronomy team with that kind of experience. And the proposal that we were talking about in-house, that person would report to Eric. It would be someone that would be coming from the current maintenance team, where we would backfill that position and promote this person up. But I think it would be important that they, and I'll just state that from a reporting standpoint, I'm seeing more and more synergy with Mickey and Eric working together. Mickey is obviously an expert in his craft. We talked about that when I interviewed for the position. His reputation precedes him, and I think he's shown what kind of skill set he has in just the short time that he's been here and the improvements that he's made to the golf course. Eric also brings a great skill set when it comes to HOAs and landscaping. So, my personal opinion would be that person would report to me and would work directly with both Mickey and Eric.
Okay, that's all I have.
If I may, would that person also be available to help the ARC in the cases of landscaping changes, and probably working with Julia when she looks at her inspections and stuff like that? Would that person also, be looking never mind just whoever TrueScapes, whatever the heck they're doing, but within, the board's stuff?
Yes, the answer is absolutely yes. And again, I think in the short time I've been here, we can't have enough experts on our team to help. And, we really do have a team mentality. And, adding this person with their skill set would absolutely help with those types of situations.
Krish?
I want two things. I want a commitment from ICON that once we hire this individual, he's 100% focused on landscaping and nothing else, unless you come before and ask for a permission. This is something that we have to improve. We have to get the homeowners satisfied. So let's please not use this individual for anything else other than landscaping. I do want a commitment, Bobby, on that one. That's the first thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no problem making that commitment.
Okay. Second thing, if you're really going to have this person have the power and the teeth to do things with the contractor, we should put a bonus penalty clause in the contract that we're giving out. Penalty if things are not performed as we have written based on this person's quality control. And if they do an extremely great job, let's be willing to give them some additional money. But let's make sure that there is a penalty so that the contractor can react very quickly to it. And so that gives this position a lot of teeth. So I'm going to kind of suggest that we have that as part of the plan. If you're going to vote for this, is to say we're going to have a bonus penalty clause in the contract, please.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Okay.
I just, Bobby, this is not just a maintenance person being brought over. This is a qualified agronomist or landscape person.
Yes, this is an actual, true agronomist. Again, the two options that we have is we have one person that we feel would be perfect for this role, that is already working in agronomy right now. But I think we would be foolish not to do our due diligence and open up that rec and see what other qualified people. We understand the importance of this. We hear the survey results. We know this is an issue. This is something that consumes a lot of our time, and we know it's important to the community. And beautiful yards are something that we should have here. So this person is absolutely going to be the difference maker in doing that, and we're going to make sure that we have the most qualified person, if passed tonight, that we can have in that role.
Thank you.
Are there other board comments or questions? We have lots of.
Well, one of the things that I'd want to say, because I was involved with the original discussion with ICON, we as a board wanted this position since day one. And we're now talking about it now. I said it's better late than never, but just want to get on the record. This was a position that we initially talked about before even Bobby or Mickey came on board, and we talked about it. And now we're moving forward, and I think it's going to be good. But this is not something that we just thought up to yesterday.
And somewhat similar to the staffing organization you had prior to ICON.
Correct.
A little bit. So you
Yes.
had this position
Yes, we had this
previously.
position, right.
Correct. With Pope. Okay. So we do have, this topic has struck a chord, so we have a lot of comments and feedback and some questions. So if I may, if there are no other board comments, I'll go ahead and start with the feedback here from the membership. Let me get back to where we started. Okay, so I think this question's been answered, but Karen Eckert asked, to whom does this quality inspector employee report? And that will be to Bobby. Brad Klink is commenting that we should not have to pay someone to make sure our vendor does their job. The vendor should have to meet minimum service levels or we fire them. Eileen DeBoer says she agrees with that and thought Eric was ensuring the same and says that $75,000 is too much. James Friedebach states all homes lot sizes are not the same. One size should not penalize all. Nancy Schneider commented that Eric has the facilities and landscape and that it's too much for one person. We need a dedicated person to landscape. John Hermes stated, this seems way too exorbitant. Agree with Brad, hire a part-time consultant if we really need it. Richie Perez question states, maybe the reason why costs haven't increased in past years is because there are now hundreds of no trimming signs throughout the community. That's a... Tim Carnahan stated we should use the feedback system for residents with specific, or that is resident specific with requirements for responses, not hire a new person. Richie Perez stated hiring a $75,000 person to make sure a vendor does its job. Maybe we're using the wrong vendor. Jeffrey Clark is asking, why not create an overall quality control position for this and add other vendor review tasks and not limit to landscaping? I don't know if you want to respond to that. I think Krish kind of already did that. The need is for landscaping primarily, right? Greg Hartline asked, are we not already paying for this?
Let me comment on that piece. What we didn't have under Pope was a facility manager, and we have suffered in regards to, and I wouldn't want to get into it because we already talked about all of the construction defect, and part of that is some PM that was never done. So what we have with ICON is primarily is the facility management piece under Eric that incorporates some landscaping. With 78% of the dissatisfaction survey is about residential landscape. This is something from a board standpoint we could discuss and debate how much we pay, but I think that we had this before, and I think the focus now and with the team that they want to put together is something that we should consider.
Thank you.
Tessa, I'm just going to add
Sure.
one other comment. When you look at the size of our community, I think it's a lot to manage facilities and landscaping for one person. So that's why we have the need. And to echo what Steve said, with the past management company, we had zero performance management and holding people accountable. And I think that's where we need to get crystal clear with the new company.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Richie Perez stated maintenance of our golf course is a full-time job. Using Mickey for landscaping issues throughout the community is not a smart move. I don't think that's the intention.
No,
correct?
but I would say he's an advisor.
Absolutely, because he's got the skill set, right? And to Bobby's point, we all work as a team. We don't work in independent silos. So
We wouldn't have an expert in our field on our team and say, well, you can't.
talk to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. few comments that think the $75,000 dollar amount is too high. John Hermes stated that he agrees with Krish on penalty and bonus clauses. Karen Eckert states, this person also oversees common areas maintained by the vendor, spread the cost over common landscape as well as single-family home landscape.
That's a good suggestion. That's a good suggestion. It's all in.
The 75,000 I understand is a lot of money, but it's not just salary. It's a fully loaded cost is what we're talking about, which includes all the benefits, taxes, and everything put into the thing. So just
Thank
want to
you.
make sure that everybody understands.
Thank you, Krish. I was actually going to ask you to clarify that here, but wait before we finish. So thank you for touching on that. Jim Gelsman is asking, is there a specific job description in place for this position with specific expectations?
Yeah, I mean, it is an agronomy expert. I mean, that is what we're looking for. That's what we look for on our superintendents, our assistant superintendents, and that's exactly what we'll look for in our landscaping person.
Fred Williamson stated, I agree with the board that a dedicated full-time quality or QA person is needed and they should work closely with Mickey. $75,000 for a well-qualified person seems very reasonable.
Thank you.
Marcia Welsh asked the question that Chris just answered, that yes, the $75,000 includes the benefits, taxes, payroll tax, all those things that we need to put in. So that's an all-in cost. And I think that covers everything.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
You know, something else I might add too, because I didn't clarify it earlier. You know, when we talk about agronomy expert, a lot of times that person comes with a certain skill set as it pertains to irrigation. And again, when you can find someone that has an agronomy background and knowledge, combine that with the irrigation, that is worth its weight in gold. And thank you, Krish. I was actually going to comment too that I don't think it's a $75,000 salary, and based on their experience, it could be lower.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion, a second. We've had any more further discussion? If no further discussion, let's vote. Those in favor of the motion signify as aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next.
Okay, Alan, I believe you have one more motion.
One more.
All right, take us there to number 3.
So I'd like to make a motion that the new enhanced RFP be accepted when we get all the results in, and that we try to maintain a cost cap of a 20% increase.
So the motion is seeking a not to exceed a 20% increase. Is that the motion, or?
I guess that's a tricky one, since we don't know what the numbers are.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll go with your motion, and I just wanted to see if there was clarification there.
Chris, you want to make comment before he makes a motion?
Let me suggest a different approach here, okay? First of all, we haven't seen all the bids come back to the RFP. Let them come back. I think there's been a requirement. I think we put on Eric to get the bids in this week, Eric, or as quickly as we can. Even tomorrow is one of the discussions we were having. I think let's get the bids in first, and let's see all, I know the team has looked at what are the enhanced and expanded requirements. Let the bids come back. Let's take a look at what is adding to the contract, and let's slice and dice that just to take a look which are more valuable before voting on that motion today. And let's do it as part of the rest of the budget process, because this determines actually a big chunk of what we have to have as an assessment for the landscaping for single family homes. So my recommendation is hold off until we get that and take a look. But I'm open to other board members' input on that.
I think under the circumstances, Bob? Go ahead.
Oh no, I was. Chris said exactly what I was going to say. With not having it in front of us, it might be premature to vote right now at this meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So let's
okay.
use that third
So you'll vote
thing just as a information to the community about what the intentions are and where we're going, and hold off until the budget when we have real numbers.
I will-
Motion withdrawn.
Thank you, sir.
we're going to withdraw that for now, but that will be part of next week's budget, and we'll have a lot more detail about that, and maybe outline all of those enhancements a little bit further, and see where the pricing is.
Excellent. Thank you. And Karen Eckert did ask what is the increase in the common landscape services, but we don't know that yet because we're still working on the draft budget. So we're not in a position to speak on that increase yet. Okay. Then with that said, I believe we're ready to move on to our construction defect project status update.
And that will be Bobby for the update on the list, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Steve. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to give an update on the construction defect list. Eric Hager is the project manager on many of these. Mickey Sabotic is also the project manager on a few of them. So Mickey could not be here tonight. I'm going to speak on behalf of Mickey and give the updates on the projects that he's the project manager of. But I'm going to let Eric speak about the projects that are under his project management.
Eric, you need to talk louder. You talk too quiet.
All right, so the first project is the amenity center windows. The project description is to change out 5 windows at the seals. Let's change out the 5 windows that the seals have failed on. So we've actually hired, I'm working with a general contractor on a few different projects, and I had gotten his advisement on the 5 windows. I've been working with Roger Carpenter on this project, and we have a company, Window Panes Incorporated. We found out that these 5 windows are actually still under warranty, so we would only be paying for the labor cost. We are meeting with him tomorrow at 9 a.m. To look over the contract. This project would cost $4,000, which would be a savings of $11,000.
All right, for this particular project, then it's past the scope stage, and it's you're indicating that our total cost because of just labor would be about $4,000.
Correct.
Since $4,000 is below a $5,000 figure from any of the board liaisons, does the board need to have a vote on this particular issue, or can we let them go through? We're going to let it go through. So you can complete that project. Just report back as when it's completed.
Will
Eric,
do.
Can I really request you talk a little bit louder?
Yeah.
I'm having a tough time hearing from here even, please.
We like people to scream sometimes.
Yeah, the comments are saying that too, that they need you directly in the mic. You're hard to hear.
All right, so the second project name is the Amenity Center Card Room Flooring. We've actually picked out the color, and we're working with a contractor, Fairfax Floors. We've signed a contract for $4,300 to move forward with the flooring. The color will be a little bit lighter than before, based on the feedback from our interior designer, which is an Icon preferred vendor.
So you're just in the process stage, not necessarily ready for a vote to go ahead and complete it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we're October 13th. We're going to move forward with it, and they're going to.
So you're in the implementation stage, is what you're saying? That it's going to be done by October 13th?
That's where it's going
Right.
to start.
Therefore,
If it's under 5,000, so again,
Move it. Keep it going.
Okay. The culinary acoustic tile project, phase 1 has begun. So the current phase one is about 35% complete. It's looking really good. And after phase one is complete, we're going to have a sound study to be completed before we move forward to the other phases.
What was that before what?
We're going to have a sound study done before we move forward with the other phases.
Okay, when in the case of the acousticals, we do from a board standpoint, we approve the first phase subject to the engineering report indicating that we made the improvements that we want before we would then go for a vote to the second stage. So that's okay. We're good on that one.
Okay.
Keep rolling.
Okay, I will speak on behalf of Mickey. The next project at hand is the golf course drainage. This project will deal with the poor drainage areas on the golf course and areas of the golf course specifically that back up to the homes. This project is actually a work in progress. Mickey has identified some key areas. Number 10 is an area around the green that we are looking at. We're actually waiting on a couple bids to come back for that. Number 5 along the left side where the condos are. And then in between 5 and 6 is an area that we want to drudge and clear out. We are going to wait until it dries up. It is literally a swamp right now, but that is going to be great. And then we are going to continue to evaluate other areas. You know, one of the biggest things that Mickey and I have noticed in the short time that we've been here is a lot of the drain basins that are on the golf course that back up towards the homes, for whatever reason, the designers of the golf course put a lot of beds, and that is problematic with drainage because when you get these rains where the water should just flow into the drain, it doesn't. It picks up mulch and debris and literally clogs up the drains, and so they literally become useless. And that's when we get the large standing water, and again, it's very problematic as it backs up to the home. So that is a project that Mickey is currently working on, has a good grasp on, and again, that's just an update for tonight.
Okay, we have, and Sandy Rice is the board liaison on this. You're not in a position that you need a vote for implementation because the scope is still yet to be defined. Good. Next
Correct. The next project I'd like to talk about is the golf course bunker drainage. Golfers know all too well about that. This project consists of current problems with the bunker drainage issues that we are experiencing. We are in the process right now of getting 2 bids, actually 3. We've identified the 6 holes on the golf course that the drainage is particularly problematic. That is holes 6 through 8 and 14 through 16. We have 2 bids coming back. I think we actually received them today. I don't have the specific information on it. And then we're also getting a bid that would address all 42 bunkers on the golf course, to fix this drainage issue once and for all.
Okay, we're not ready for prime time on that one either. But that's all right. That's a big deal, and we need to really understand it before we move forward. Let's skip the next one
Okay. You want to skip that one till the end?
towards the end.
So we'll skip.
You got it. From my see, the pond erosion is next.
Yeah, so pond erosion areas. So we've started correcting some of the pond erosion areas, and we have actually another company, Cross Creek Environmental, that's going to be doing a pond survey for us and creating a priority list of the erosion areas that need to be corrected. So we're waiting on that survey to come back, probably, hopefully, by the end of next week, and then we'll start planning out our erosion project list.
Okay.
All right, continuing on the erosion topic,
Bobby, can I stop you just real quick? We have one question that states, are the drainage projects being funded with the settlement monies? And I believe
All of these
all
are construction defect settlement money, not anything from reserves or assessments.
Before we move on, Eric, on this last one, you'd mentioned that the folks you're working with are going to do a survey and prioritize. So are we looking at more than just the ponds on Sorrento or not? I just want to be clear on that.
Yes, we are using this survey to look at all the ponds on
All
the
the
property.
ponds. All right, now that's no problem with that, but that's supported going forward. But that's certainly a big, huge change in scope from what we have on the deficiency list, I believe.
Yes.
I think it's worthwhile to have it just as background, but then when we go to the next step on what we do and where those funds come from, we'll deal with it at that time. Yep, okay.
Right.
May I? We're going out for contracts on drainage and stuff like that. We doing our best to combine things for, like, you might get a better deal if you're doing 3 different drainage issues from one company versus going to 3 different ones. I'm hoping we're trying to do economies of scale and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Yeah, we see the value in bulk pricing, and the bids that we're getting are from these light companies. And as I mentioned, a bid that same contractor is giving us a bid for multiple projects, and that discount is going to be in there. We ready?
Keep going.
Okay. Erosion issues on hole number 15. This project will, determine the correct long-term fix for the erosion along the right side of hole number 15. The only really update I have right now is that that is a real problem that we are going to address. We have again a couple proposals that we're working with. As Aaron talks later about, there may be some options in there too from some of the pavers if we end up getting them. So just the update on the erosion on 15 is that we are currently getting bids to make that a permanent fix. I think over the years I've heard we've tried to do some things that just didn't really work long term. So we've got some good plans. We've got some good bid out there. That's the only update I have for tonight.
So on that one, you would say the scope is already determined. However, the pricing is what you're getting for, and what the solution that you're going to bring to the board. Do you have any estimate? Because this has been going on. Well, it took us time to get the money. I get that, but this everyone knows about that area. So any ETA on being able to begin once an approval is done?
Yeah, and speaking with Mickey today, he thought he was really close to getting a bid or two back. I would say in the next couple of weeks. Okay. And I think we designated $30,000 for the project.
Yes. All right.
Okay. And staying on the golf course, the golf course irrigation system. This project is specifically looking into the soft and hardware issues on the golf course irrigation. I can tell you when Mickey and Icon first arrived, signals for the irrigation timers were an issue, a very big issue. 6 or 7 areas we were literally having to go out and manually turn on the irrigation because the signal was not working. Mickey is working right now with Hunter, and over the last month or so, Hunter's really stepped up to the plate. Hunter is the irrigation provider, Rainbird, Toro, or others. Hunter is the one that we have on our golf course, and they have come in now and fixed 2 or 3 of them, to be specific, and they are going to continue to come. We've gotten commitments from their team that they're going to continue to try to get these other ones. Each one has different defects, but again, Hunter so far has really stepped up to the plate and fixed 3 of these 6 at really no cost to us. So I'll continue to give you an update on that, and Mickey will continue to give us an update on that. But right now, I think that's a good story from someone that we were really disappointed in, that's really stepping up and doing the right thing.
That's fantastic. Good update on that. Keep going.
Yeah, so the lighting at Benito Gate and mailbox areas, we have received 3 quotes, and we're kind of going over these quotes in detail. That covers the best lighting options at the gate. We will actually be running a test run on one of the mailbox areas in-house using solar panel lighting. They will be installed directly on the mailboxes.
The only question I have, and I don't know if any of your the board members do, is that we got to make sure from a board's perspective we have a scope that's defined that we could understand, because it is a little soft, and that's okay, but we need very specifics, how far this goes, where it goes. Obviously, the mailbox areas are easy because they're mailbox areas, so those are areas. As far as the lighting where it's dark, I'm sure we have opinions as to what other places there should be, so be cognizant of that as you develop the scope. Any comments on that?
You say you have a test area getting ready to start, Eric?
For the mailbox areas.
Are you doing 1 light or 2 at each mailbox bank?
1.
Are you putting it on a high center pole?
No, actually, when I meant 1, we're actually putting on 1 directly on the mailboxes in front of each mailbox center. So just for an example, so you'll see, some mailbox areas have, 3 to 6, sometimes 8. So each one of those will have 1 directly in front of it, shining down. Yep. And it's a solar. Yep.
Yeah, well, we need those proposals, but obviously we want to see how well those tests go. Go ahead.
I think, Eric, this is one where we should invest in a light meter, which is not that expensive, actually measure. You put a test, you measure how much lighting you're getting, actually get around the area, and then bring that data and actually all the other details, how you plan to do. I think that'll be a more better conversation. Okay?
Understandable.
Yeah. And there's a luminous standard. You're absolutely right. And let's say where we are versus the standard.
That's more of an objective approach, and it'll help the board approve this. So what's your ET on that one?
Well, the mailboxes we're actually going to be installing this week.
What do you mean the test for
The
the
test.
mailbox?
Yep.
Wait a minute. Dick has another comment.
Eric, I don't know who you talked to about this test with all these individual lights, but I know the technology in solar lights is much better than it used to be, but it's still not where we'd like to have it because there's still limited life on the solar cells themselves. So I just want you to weigh out having multiple lights at each location and how many lights that's going to be that are going to fail 2 or 3 years down the road that we have to place versus 1 light at each location. So please take that into consideration on your tests.
Yes, and we do, and in the quotes, we do have those options available.
Very good. Keep going.
Eric, is the light actually on the top of the mailbox?
Yes. So
Okay.
It's kind of like where the mailboxes are. They're kind of like at eye level, but they shine down.
Okay, thank you.
Amenity center parking lot lights this is to add additional bollard lights to enhance the walkways around the parking lot. So we also, with the same vendors, we've received 3 quotes, and we are currently determining the best one.
So in the case of the amenity parking lot light project, the scope is to utilize Ballard lights. Is this correct?
That's not the only options we're considering.
Well, whatever the options are, you will bring them to us, and then we'll determine what we could afford.
Understandable.
Eric, let me turn that around. In other words, I think you and I had a brief discussion on this. You're going out and you're getting bids, and you're considering some Ballard lights. You're considering some high overhead lights. I think we need to, I think I asked you this, whatever you come up with, you do not know at this time whether this meets what we as a board want because we haven't clearly defined it. So I don't know whether that's some give and take back and forth or to take one and prepare, but you're getting bids and you're doing a lot of work and effort. You may come back and we may say, this isn't really what we wanted. Shouldn't we kind of be telling you, working with you, not telling you as much as working with you to say what kind of standard or how do we know when we're successful on this, or how do you know that you're doing exactly what the board is asking for?
Well, with the amount of money that's budgeted for this project, all options are under the budget.
Wait.
Yeah, I was going to hold off till the end, but the way the questions are coming and the way the comments are coming in and questions from the board, I think it's a good time for me to discuss this. This was something that I was going to bring up as an option for the board to consider. No motion or anything tonight, but we all know that we hired Icon to manage our business here. What you staffed up for was what you thought it would require for you to do a good job managing the day-to-day operation of this community. You didn't sign up for managing the day-to-day operation of this community and managing an extremely large project list that could take up to a year to complete some of these larger projects that are actually undefined yet. I think it's unfair for the board to put Eric and Mickey in the place that we've put them, where we're expecting them to do top service in their day job and also provide top level service on all the project stuff. It's a lot to keep up with. If I was running a separate business and all of a sudden we had a large project load come on us for a short period of time, we would go outside the fence, we would hire a project expert, somebody with infrastructure background that understands how to run these type of projects, and we would proposal here for the board tonight. But I really think I'm leaving. I provided a lot of oversight up to this point. I'm not going to be providing that oversight anymore. Somebody needs to do it. I don't think it should be a board member. That's why I was trying to give this stuff to you and back myself out. But the more I've been thinking about it, it's kind of unfair to place that all on Icon without additional staffing. So something down the road, next meeting or whatever, I think the board needs to consider that.
Dick, thank you for that. I think you hit the nail on the head right there, because we're talking about these construction deficiency projects. But if you look at the priority that another table we have that Chris had put together, taking all the other projects we have that may not come from construction deficiency but may come from assessments or operating funds or whatever, there's a total of 26 projects on here. And there's no way, Eric, I think you're the project manager for 80 or 90% of them. You can't do that and do your job. We used to say back in projects, you can either have them done right, you can have them done cost effective, or you can have them done quickly. You only get to choose two of those three. All right, so we're definitely going to have to prioritize some of this and say, well, some of it's going to get done now, some of it's going to get done later, and I don't know if our goal, and I don't know that we as a board have actually done this, to define, do we want all these projects on this done within 1 year, 2 years? I think initially the goal was 2 years, and I believe that's still the case. So, we certainly, I don't know if this is part of the discussion tonight, and I'm holding up something here. I think, Chris, you prepared this, didn't you? It's kind of a good first pass at prioritizing some of these projects once we get beyond these. But I support what Dick said 1,000%. There's no way you can do your day-to-day job, manage all these without getting totally frustrated. So, and that's what I mean about doing it right. If we need to bring in project managers, if that's what we need to do, we talk about it and we do it. Or we delay some of the projects and give you only a workload that you can handle and push some of them into the future. I mean, that's something we collectively have to come up with right here and decide on that.
I was going to say basically the same thing, and I was going to look at it a little bit differently. I mean, there are certain things here that are safety issues, and I think the safety issues should be taking priority over some of the things. And I know golf has got to get fixed, but we know, like, the problem with bunkers, that's going to be going on, probably well into late next year or even longer. I don't know. But I think what we have to come up with is the priority list. And like I said, the number one priority to me is fixing the lighting out here, fixing the mailbox lighting, even fixing the pickleball lighting, which is not up to snuff. Maybe even fixing, I don't know how the tennis lighting is, but the safety issues to me must come first on this list. And the other stuff can be pushed back, and that may lighten the load.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I agree, and I don't remember who said it earlier, but I think maybe it was Bob. And I think we talked about this a little bit at our meeting last week, you know, when we had this discussion about the construction defect projects, the importance of the board really reviewing that scope and the RFPs before we go out to bid. Because to Bob's point, you know, if we're running around collecting bids and we're not all on the same page with what it is, the end goal is, then we're just spinning our wheels. So I appreciate you bringing that forth, because I know we talked about that a little bit last week. Unfortunately, some other members of our team couldn't be here last week for that discussion. So I do think that's important, Bob, and I just want to make sure that we don't lose that step in the process.
Let's not forget that we've already agreed on this list
Oh yeah, no,
many months ago.
The list for sure, but just, you know, what the scope of each item's going to be.
We're
that's
asking
all.
about the scope as
Yeah.
we go by.
Yeah.
Dick's comment about having a consultant may have some merit. As far as what the priority should be, perhaps we'll have another meeting if we have to. But I think the priorities that Jim mentioned about safety is one of them. But you know, we could walk and chew gum at the same time. So it's not like you do one every 6 months. So as far as I'm concerned, with one vote, we're going to do it right. We're going to hold you to it. But I believe that these things could be done simultaneously to solve issues for the entire community. That's what these projects are for. Continue.
All right, the next one is the upgrade of the pickleball lighting. Same thing. I had all three contractors bid on all three of these projects at once. So we're currently reviewing the three quotes to upgrade the pickleball lighting, and we have several different options for this project.
And the last one is refrigeration. Or did I miss one?
Yes, so the refrigeration in the Culinary Center and the Bahama Bar. I've been working with Justice on this and Mark. So we have we have multiple bids coming in. I think there's a little bit of question on the location at the Bahama Bar as far as installing refrigeration and the kitchen equipment over there. So I wouldn't feel comfortable answering that question without Justice or Sandra. But we do have quotes in, and we are looking at these quotes.
My understanding is Dwayne had a refrigeration plan that fits the scope. Is that correct?
Yes, and I just think that there's a little bit of question on the location.
So when you get that location issue resolved, you're going to come to the board for approval because you'll
Correct.
have the scope. And the last one is underground piping. That's the $500,000 that we're just having abeyance until we have to see if we need it, right?
Yes. At this time, I don't have any updates. This is one of the projects that I've kind of kept. I've kind of working on the multiple projects that we've already spoken about. I've kind of kept this one because I just want to make sure that this one is definitely being looked at with a lot more detail.
Okay, hold on a minute.
Eric, the only comment I'd make on that, because that's probably what's the largest bucket of money we have in the deficiency list, but it's also the most cloudy or undefined issue that we have. When do we go out and do more under drain piping work if we need to? And somebody suggested that, you know, the board has to, or somebody's got to develop criteria. I don't know that anybody here sitting at this panel has that level of expertise to develop that criteria. I don't know if any of our residents do, but there are contractors out there that we could call on that could give us some advice on some criteria and some conditions that we can look at and base our decisions going forward on, because we're going to want good decision-making criteria before we go tearing up roads.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So thank you for those updates. We have we held off on one update because apparently we may now have some information from Aaron.
Before we go into Aaron's, can I just read some of the comments
Go ahead.
that went along with these? Most are just comments, some questions. Eileen Gelber states, did you get other prices for the flooring? I had an estimate from this company in my house and I was not impressed. Shelley Carpet and Flooring was much better. Jean Levine questions, are the drainage projects being funded with the settlement monies? I think
Yes.
we've already addressed that, right? John Hermes just stated that it's great to see the ICON general manager at this meeting as well as the various department leadership to answer questions and provide presentations. Richie Perez, with regards to erosion in Sorrento Ponds, we knew exactly what had to be done. Unfortunately, product wasn't installed correctly. No need to start from scratch, just need to get it done right. Eileen DeBoer says, let's remember this is specifically a low light community for the environment and that she doesn't want mailboxes lit up. Jean Levine is asking, when the construction deficiencies settlement was completed, was money earmarked for different projects? I believe
Yes.
the question was yes, or answer was yes to that. Brad Klink states, for the mailbox areas, we should look to limit the light pollution that we generate. Jean Levine stated, lighting at the mailboxes have to take into account the nearby homes. Mira Levine states, lights directly over mailboxes could be a bug fest. Can the lights be raised so bugs are higher up? Sandy Saban commented, with the amenity center lighting, is motion detector lighting being considered on the side of the building?
Could be.
Don't know yet. Okay. Eileen DeBoer, no lights at mailboxes solves any problem. Roger Carpenter stated, mailbox test light is a very limited proof of concept recommended by lighting contractor. Several approaches are being evaluated in parallel. Eileen DeBoer stated, amenity center lighting must consider homes nearby that do not have berms and extensive landscaping, she continues, to block, like at the wellness. John Hermes stated, mailbox lighting is a safety issue. Let the test proceed. There's plenty of time on this. Eileen Gelber stated, some people work and they get home after sundown, especially in the winter. Lucy Pruitt states, thanks board for this difficult work. Icon too. Brad Klink commented, agree, Lucy, the board deserves our thanks. Lots of work, lots of time, and not a lot of thanks.
Thank you. Aaron.
Okay, thank you all. So I'm talking on behalf of the pavers in the golf entrance. As you all have seen, there's a number of issues there, one being safety, you guys have touched on, so it's certainly what I would define as a high priority, but also drainage as part of the deficiencies and defects as well. So for those of you who may not be aware, when we arrived, we relocated our arrival and cart staging to provide a little friendlier service opportunity and warm welcome and fond farewell during the final departure to assist the members with the carts and their clubs and all of that. So, we provided a couple different quotes. So we're going to just talk through the scope of work here in three separate areas, and then at the end we'll talk about a couple of the different options. So the first proposal and recommendation, as we move out of COVID world and kind of continue to look at the opportunities for that visual enhancement, that first greeting and appearance upon arrival for our staff to assist, is the area that I define as the private cart parking. So generally right now we stage a number of carts in that little half circle roundabout, so to speak, and it provides us enough opportunity for carts to be staged there for about an hour or so, an hour worth of tee times. So as we kind of move down, Evan, if you could, go ahead and scroll to the next one. And scroll just up a touch. Okay. So as we look at those three areas, the first area there is the big X right out in front of the golf shop. So as we look at to expand the cart traffic in the paver area in the, let's call it position 1, area 1. The area 1, the cost of that to just place additional pavers, remove the landscaping, is approximately $3,100. So we would remove that landscaping and expand the pavers, allowing for easier access and a cleaner look through your journey to the practice areas and first tee. The welcome podium and staff will be staged at the welcome and arrival area just near the private cart parking. Pricing does not fix the drainage issue in this area. Please scroll ahead, Evan. So the expanded paver area number 2, as you can see, it's a little bit of an ugly look. So the landscaping again is somewhat removed, the grass areas. So the expanded pavers allow for easier access and a cleaner look, kind of the same idea as you head toward the first tee. Again, the price for that one is a little larger. It's a larger square footage. It's about $8,900 for that second area. And then if you could, Evan, we would extend that area all the way through to this next. If you back up one, Evan. So all the way through to that next paver area there. It would basically just connect with the next staging area. So now we can go ahead and skip one more. And we're going to move into the third area. Area 3 is defined as an expanded parking area, which will provide golf members the opportunity to also park their private carts and trade for one of our fleet carts at that location. We also stage members that have their clubs on in club storage. We pre-stage their carts there as well. And then for special events and select tournaments, we also host that as our staging area. That's the location where we provide welcome and announcements with easier access to the practice areas. So arrival and departure, expanded cart paths and elimination of the sharp angled turns. For those of you that have driven through there, that path isn't even wide enough to kind of get through. You also have the safety issue of members and guests walking to and from the Bahama Bar. So it's what I would define as a very high traffic area with not enough room to maneuver. It's really just a complicated logistics in terms of trying to provide a number of different routings available for foot traffic and cart traffic. So an expanded paver is certainly needed. So again, the pricing for that area was just under $2,900, but that does not fix the drainage issue in those areas. If you could just go ahead and continue down, Evan. So this is your departure. That final one was just the opposite look as you're leaving. One more down, Evan, please. Yep. Good. So that's, again, as you leave, you have an expanded cart path on both sides. As you depart, there's traffic coming in into the golf course and exiting the golf course. If you could just go ahead and scroll down just a touch. So that's where you've completed your journey, and hopefully you've had a great round of golf upon departure. That expanded pathway will again help with the transition and the exit of the course. And then at the end of that pathway, our staff will be awaiting to greet you and assist you with the clubs as you finish up. So if you could please scroll to the next page. We're going to talk about the timeline here. ETA for starting this project. If we select similar pavers to what's out there now, they expect to be able to start the project in the next 10 to 15 business days. If we choose a paver that's a little what they would have to order, it could be up to 4 to 6 weeks. We anticipate just using a like paver that's currently out there. That's kind of the look that you'll see around the property. So the amount of time that it would take to complete the project, if we were to just patch the 3 areas mentioned, it would be about 5 business days. If we were to go with another option, which is take out all the pavers and reset those pavers, it's about 10 business days. The workaround, we've got a couple options there. The traffic can flow from the staging area through the event lawn to the practice areas. I think if the way I understand that was a route that was used in the past to get to the first tee. So for the temporary, we could certainly use that and maybe the best option. The vendor did give us an option. They said they could leave half of the area open for cart traffic as they work on the other half. So the scope of work options, again, I talked about we'll have a couple options here available to select. Option A is just under $15,000. That's where we kind of pavers are installed into those 3 areas against existing faded pavers. The vendor will attempt to match the look as best as possible, but assures us that it won't be exact. There is a savings there of $22,000, just over $22,000, and does not address the drainage deficiencies or defects. So that would be option A. Option B is $37,000 roughly. That's the supply and install of all new pavers. All pavers will look clean, fresh, and uniform. This also corrects the grading, which will improve the drainage to flow toward the landscaping. So if you could just go ahead and scroll down a little bit, Evan. In conjunction with the updated paver project, we've also looked at the difficulties at the bag drop and believe strongly a 2-lane one-way entrance will provide an easy solution to some of the current challenges. If you've pulled in there, you've probably witnessed or seen or experienced the difficulties of the U-turn, trying to funnel around and do a full U-turn at that little roundabout as oncoming traffic is coming in, so it is a little bit of a safety concern too. With rerouting and having that a one-way entrance, members and guests will have the opportunity to pull in the lot by the tennis designated parking area. Members can continue forward to turn into the resident-only parking area, or members and guests may use our new service lane / bag drop area while the other lane may continue to flow through and around the guest parking. It only takes 1 car or 2 cars in most days where it creates a little bit of a traffic flow. Cars are waiting and may not even be there for golf, but just kind of stuck in a holding pattern as we assist to get the bags. So, we identify there's certainly going to be communication and additional signage required in order to pull that off. You see the arrows would have to kind of be updated and corrected. But we'd be able to eliminate the dividers there in the middle of the road. That's, again, a little bit of an ugly visual. So the service lane will be on the left. Traffic could continue to flow on the right. Eliminating the U-turn there, which is a little bit of a safety issue. You've got carts coming and going. You've got traffic coming both ways. It's a little bit of a complicated welcome area. So that's all I have, and I'm happy to open it up to questions or comments.
I had a question, Aaron. 2 or 3 times you've mentioned, but this won't solve the drainage issue. Does it pay to do all this paver work without addressing the drainage?
So if you've seen that area, it's certainly needs to be corrected. It does not address that with just the patchwork. If we do the full reset, they assure me that the grading, they would have some crushed rock underneath, crushed cement, so that it lifts it a little bit, and then the grading would flow more towards the outer banks of the landscaping area. So you have an option A, which is kind of to piecemeal it and do the patchwork. That does not address, it would almost create more drainage issues.
Aaron, I think what we need to say here is that the construction deficiency is specific to the reason we have money for that is because of the drainage. So really, I mean, for the board, we have to talk about the full drainage complement to improve.
Yes, sir.
It's not cosmetic at all. We can't do that.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up, Alan. I just kind of wanted just to weigh in a little bit too, because I love what you brought up, Jim, tonight about safety and prioritization. Drainage, you hit it right on the head, Steve. We're going to execute whatever the board decides tonight, and I usually try to stay right in the middle. But in this particular case, because safety is so important, drainage is so important, it's one of the first things I saw when I stepped on property, when I walked around the corner. One, we're talking logistics, we're talking about beautification. This is absolutely the way to go. It's going to let us as operators have that grand entrance, that fond farewell. But when you get right down to it, the safety and the drainage is not going to improve if we just piece those patches together. So I just thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to say something before you guys voted, that to do the whole scope of the project, I believe is the way to go, because it addresses everything that needs to be addressed, specifically the drainage and safety.
Yeah, I want to give. Oh, I'm sorry, Bob. Okay, I just wanted to talk a little bit more, expand on what Steve talked about. The original deficiency list on our deficiency list was just the drainage issue. And then the more we dug into it, the more we talked to, at that time, it was our Pope management company that was here. Some of the golf members, Sandy was involved. The scope expanded because we realized it was basically a dysfunctional area. So the reason the scope was expanded and included in the deficiency list was not only for the drainage, but to correct the dysfunctionality of that area and the safety issues. And the other reason that we wanted to do the whole scope was we brought new pavers over there and set them down. No matter how close, those pavers in that area have been beat to death. They are absolutely faded beyond original recognition. And to piecemeal and put new pavers in patches, I don't think that's the look we want for our community. It's not very much money to do the whole, much more money to do the whole job. I just think we need to do it right once.
And I agree, Richard, with your comments. We do have the money. We do need to do it right. And, as we were talking, as I was talking before about the erosion on 15, Mickey can get in there and get a lot of these pavers before they go in and dig them all up. And we can use those pavers on other projects, specifically on the golf course. It could remedy 15. It will be used to beautify around some of the tee boxes. So I just wanted to point that out. If we go with the full scope of the project, if you guys vote that tonight, we can use a lot of those pavers before they dig them up and haul them away for other projects. So I think that's something to consider within, even though this project is more expensive, there is added benefits of using those pavers in other projects.
All right, do we have a motion? So we can get a discussion?
Yeah, I was going to ask something, but I think that it's been asked. I have a motion to go ahead and approve $37,000 to do the full project, including all the pavers, and get the drainage right.
Do we have a second? We have a second. We have a motion and second. Any further discussion?
I think you're making the right points. I just want to make sure that if you do the full project, are you confident that you're going to address the drainage issue? Has enough work been done to clearly say the drainage issue in that area is once for all addressed? If you haven't done that, let's do it and get the right scope. If you've done it, it's great.
We have, and we've had that discussion with them numerous times. As Aaron said, they talked about crushed shells, just regrading that and getting that into, because there are drains over there. It just right now, the sloping doesn't get to those drains. It just sits there. And then when it dries, the algae that gets on it, and it gets slick, and it's really dangerous. So we have spoken to that, Chris, and if you do vote that way tonight, I personally will make sure that I'm out there with them, making sure that grade is going to the drains.
Bobby, all I'm suggesting is let's make sure you get at least a good engineering sketch that says this is where it's going to drain, and they build it to that sketch at least, instead of not having anything at all. Okay, that's the suggestion I'm trying to make.
Sure.
That you make sure that before they start the work, they've done enough engineering to say it's going to drain. And it's not after the fact, we did our best, and then, we're stuck with something if it doesn't drain again.
Understood.
Go ahead.
Okay, so we do have, I guess, just one question. Will this one-way approach encourage people to park in the resident-only parking?
So our staff currently reminds public guests, anyone that any non-members, that the public parking is by the tennis courts. This will actually improve that. They'll have to drive right by that area, and then they exit around. And again, some improved signage, because only the resident-only signs, I believe, are at the north end of the lot. I don't know that it's actually on the south end of that lot. So as they kind of drop off, we'll be able to remind them, but also some signage would also identify that.
Is the signage included in this when you start doing the 2-lane in? And so people won't be coming around the other area, and you
Is the
end
signage
up
in the
with
price?
2 cars facing each other, one coming one way and one coming the other. Like one-way signs and stuff like that?
Is it included in the price? Is that the question?
Yes.
No, sir.
Okay.
Is the price for the signs material?
Eric, do you know the cost of signs? I can't imagine. I have to believe that's a minimal cost.
Agreed. So what, we have any further discussion? Do we have a
You've got a motion and a second. You're calling for the vote.
we have a second, but we had we have an issue that Mr. Krish brings up, which is a condition to it. It sounded like a condition to a motion.
It's valid feedback. I think that would be in the scope of work in the contract once we agree to what that looks like during their latest site visit.
If that's the case, then we'll move forward. And any further discussion? If none, let's vote. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next issue.
All right, have we, we've covered all of the, oh, no, so we need to do the appointment of board member liaisons to each project. Is that already done?
No, well, what we're going to do is there is suggestion from Dick in regards to maybe outside people. We have board liaisons on some of these already.
Okay.
And it things like we will do some more prioritization at another meeting, but it looks like the scopes are starting to come through.
Okay, so for now, we're not going to
No, we don't need to do that right now.
discuss that further. Okay. Then I believe we can move into our next item, which is to address the board vacancy.
All right, so at our last meeting, we have a resignation because our one of our favorite people, Mr. Billers and Love Life Tina, are moving to the water. And his departure is actually this coming Friday, I think, right? This is the last day. So at the last board meeting, we kind of punted a little bit as to what we really need to do. I think if you've watched the video, you've seen it. So since then, we went out and secured counsel in regards to what we can do and what's available. And my understanding is that we do have the ability. We did pass a resolution the last board meeting in which we have the flexibility to either select or elect. With a lot of flexibility, there wasn't a lot of language other than that, but that carries through for 720, so that's sufficient. At this time, Tessa sent out a call to action for volunteers, and that the volunteers are quite plentiful, actually, in this case. So what we need to do tonight is discuss a board action or resolution to either elect or select. Before the motion is made, well, we could. I guess we can't have any discussion until we make a motion. So is there a motion on the floor for either position?
Okay, so I'll make a motion based on the situation that we're in and the number of decisions that we have to make in the coming weeks and the coming months. I move that we proceed with the appointment process and appoint someone to backfill Richard's position through the end of his term and do it before the budget meeting on October the 7th.
I second that.
All right. Do we have any discussion in regards to the selection motion? Okay, I do. I will state from my position that I don't believe that with a term of almost 15 more months that a selection should be made. I believe that you've seen tonight a lot of issues that were handled in regards to the multiple constituencies, and it seems like that there was good consensus on all of that. We have a regular election coming up in 2 months. Matter of fact, the letter will go out probably in another week or so in regards for candidates. I want to say for the candidates and all the volunteers that volunteered for the selection process, they have great credentials, fantastic credentials, and but I just want for the record to know that I'm opposed to selection for those reasons, and that's just my opinion. With that, any further discussion? This time we're going to vote by roll call.
Okay, we'll start on this side. Jim? Yes. Bob? Yes. Sandy? Yes. Steve?
No.
Mr. Biller, you don't get to vote, unfortunately. You have to abstain from this. Krish?
Yes.
And Alan? Okay, so we have 4 yeses and 2 nos, so the motion carries to appoint.
Okay. Tessa, would you tell us how the process will work according to our legal counsel?
Yes, so according to legal counsel, the board can meet in a closed session to review the candidate submissions and discuss their options. You may also meet in a closed session if you wish to interview any of those candidates outside of the written resumes and bios that have been submitted to you. And then the official appointment of whoever you decide needs to be done in an open, regular board meeting. So if you want that person in place prior to the October 7th meeting, we would probably want to schedule a closed meeting and another open meeting prior to the October 7th meeting.
Couple of questions. First question, for this selection process, is all board members available to vote?
No, Mr. Biller, because he's the resigning director, does not get to vote. It is only the remaining directors that get to vote on the replacement.
So all remaining directors get to vote?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
according to Florida statute.
I thought I had a second question. Maybe I didn't.
Just for the sake of efficiency, could we have the closed meeting, have the discussion as you're suggesting, but have the open meeting at the October 7th meeting, or you're suggesting we should have one before then? Because when's our next one scheduled? Next Wednesday?
Next
isn't it?
Wednesday is our next.
And that is
open board
October
meeting.
7th, isn't it? Yeah.
Correct.
Could we do it at that meeting?
You could, yeah, absolutely. You could be your first agenda item. Yes, absolutely. You could do that, make that appointment at your next meeting at the beginning of the meeting. Obviously, the challenge is that we're not going to necessarily know who's being appointed yet because the official appointment doesn't happen until the meeting. So then they may not be in on that meeting. So it may be better to try to meet in a closed session. So today is Tuesday. We could post notice for a closed meeting tomorrow for a meeting on Friday for your closed session. And then we could post notice again by Friday for a Monday, just a very short meeting to appoint if we need to do that.
Can we post notice for 2 meetings on Friday and hold the meetings back to back?
Absolutely, you may.
Okay, so I think we have it all. All 6 remaining board members will be selecting in a closed session and then followed up by the appointment. Again, I appreciate all the folks that have volunteered. I will say, according to statute and what our attorneys are saying, the list of those folks will not be disseminated, nor the reason for the selection will be done at all. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Next.
So do we want to set that meeting now, or will you just figure that everybody's availability out tomorrow and then go from there?
We'll after we adjourn, we'll get our calendars and then we'll do it tonight. But
Perfect.
we'll
Okay.
do it that way.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. So then the next item on the agenda this evening is before we proceed with contacting your electronic voting firm and preparing the notice for the annual meeting, I wanted to talk a little bit about your documents and statute and just recommendations from your management team in terms of your annual meeting. So Florida statute does not dictate, when you have to have your annual meeting. Many times, oftentimes, the bylaws would dictate when an HOA would have their annual meeting. Yours do not. They're silent on this matter. So they allow you to select when you have your annual meeting. Now, somewhat of a precedence has already been set by the developer prior to your board coming into play in holding past annual membership meetings in March or April of each year after the fiscal year has closed out. So your last official annual membership meeting where an election took place would have been the election to appoint Mr. Salamini to the board in April of 2019 as the first homeowner board member, along with Taylor Morrison, with Taylor Morrison. So your last membership meeting was in April of 2019. I did verify with the prior general manager, Ryan Henderson, that Taylor Morrison in past had been holding their meetings in March or April. Then, you jumped ahead 8 months and had a turnover election, which was simply a symbolic date that took place in December. And your terms didn't officially start until January 1st because Taylor Morrison wanted a clear-cut year-end for the turnover purpose, for cleaner purposes in terms of books and things like that. excuse me. So your terms actually started in January. So I just want to make sure you understand that the date of your turnover meeting doesn't necessarily need to coincide with future annual membership meetings and elections, which I would recommend you do both at the same time. There's really no sense to have an annual membership meeting and an election separate, because that just adds to the cost. You have to notice both of those meetings, and you have to mail it out to all the memberships. So from a cost perspective, it doesn't make any sense to do them separately. So with that said, April may be a little bit late for this board, essentially since you took over January 1st, but it may be worth considering, since the precedents had been set previously to have the meeting in March or April, to maybe move to late January or even early to mid-February, so that, one, you get your full term, first of all, because you're kind of shorting yourself your term. You have a lot going on right now, and maybe now is not a good time to necessarily have an election to introduce 2 more potential new board members in the middle of a lot of things that you have happening. And then also, by waiting into the beginning of 2021 for your membership meeting, you're getting a little bit closer to where that previous historical date had been set. And you'd also have your year-end financials back, so you could really recap the whole year for your membership, and really recap the whole year and just kind of talk about what your accomplishments were and where you stand financially. So just from a management standpoint, just making that recommendation to you. Certainly, of course, it's up to you as a board to decide. We have a date of December 8th already saved at Oasis Church if you want that date, but I wanted to make sure you understood that you had options and that there is no rush to have your annual membership meeting and election in December, because you haven't really fulfilled your full term yet, and it doesn't really coincide with what your past annual membership meetings and elections have been. So
That's a lot of stuff.
it is a lot. Sorry, that's a lot. I know.
That's
it's a lot to absorb.
But I think we understand that. So at the minimum, a recommendation would be that we have the election and annual meeting sometime in January, after we have the financials to a point that we give them, and that would create the current terms to go a little longer. I know they love to do that. So that's one thing. Or we could just do what we're doing now and establish this next year. I guess that's sort of two options that we may have. So I'm not suggesting anything right now, but if somebody wants to, I guess we can't even talk about this unless we have a motion. Is this correct?
No, you don't need a motion. We're just talking about dates. So you're not really making a motion. Just as information. There's no vote. Right, but for me, you have to understand, for me, I need the guidance because you've already, with your past election, established a secret ballot process. That requires that the first notice of mailing of your meeting needs to go out 60 days in advance. Right. So if we are going to aim for that December 8th date, the deadline to postmark that mailing is next Friday, October 9th. So we have a little over a week to get with your election company and get those notices in place and get that mailing out by next Friday and approved by the board in advance. So that would all have to happen within the next week in order to meet that date as well. So because it does require a 60-day notice. So
Yeah, I think it makes some sense what she's saying in terms of what we have going on between now and the end of the year. In addition to, we're going to be appointing someone new. It would give us a little bit more time from a continuity perspective to bring them up to speed. Maybe push it out, and we'll have the financials too, to your point, Steve.
Krish, what do you think?
I think, Steve, what Tessa is proposing has significant value, first of all, in a number of ways. Yeah, actually, to have a meeting after the financial year is done is a good thing. We can kind of communicate what was accomplished, and we can also communicate what the new year the board would be working on. I think those two things can be done, and have the election at the same time. I think all fits in well. The only thing I can say is because it's the year end, my suggestion is we're going to hold it in January. It's the last week in January. You pick a date in the last week in January, and we can move on. I can have the financials ready, no problems by then. So that's what I would suggest and recommend as the last week in January.
Well, I'm just looking at the calendar now. February 1st is the first Monday of February, and that would work with his last week.
When you talked about financials,
Alan.
when you talked about financials, I guess the accountant and me, I'm assuming you were talking about audited financials.
No.
Well, your audited financials won't be
Aren't
done
gonna-
by then. Yeah, we're going to be
That's
looking
right.
at, correct. We're going to be looking, that's going to be more several months down the road.
April-ish, right.
So it appears that it may not be a bad suggestion. Does anybody want to make a motion for? Oh,
First of all, tonight's the first I heard that I wasn't going to be involved in selecting my predecessor, which I get that. That's okay. But I think it, especially now that we're talking about extending out, I think it's really important. I just want to make this as a statement from me personally going out. I think it's very important that we use the selection process and actually come to an agreement and select a person so that we don't have to cast this off now that we're pushing this out even farther. I think it's really important that we fill a golf position and we don't leave this position vacant on the board.
thank you, Dick. All right. I mean, do we have a motion for this?
I make a motion that we have the annual membership meeting and the election on February 1st.
Do I hear a second? Second. Any further discussion?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you. I did forget that, Bob. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's see. Ellen DeBoer asked for rules regarding appointment, but I think we've already covered all of that. John Bailey is asking, what criteria will the board use when making their appointment decision, and will you make your deliberations public? So the answer for the deliberations is no. Per the attorney, that's not necessary. But in terms of the criteria, I guess I'll let the board answer that.
That's also a no, but I would say that the criteria would be some in the spirit of an individual that has the acumen and also the passion to serve. And I'm sure there'll be deliberations from a number of board members as we go through the list. So that's about it as far as we could actually say.
Okay. And Greg Hartline asked, don't declarations require only golf members to vote? If we were voting and there was an election, then yes, that would be the situation, Mr. Hartline. However, because the board has the authority to appoint per Florida statute, there's no voting of the golf members necessary in this scenario. Only that it be a golf member that is appointed. That's
Just
correct.
So everybody understands again, and on the selection and appointment process, every board member gets to vote. On election, the golf community elects their representative. This is different.
Correct. And it's important to also note that the appointment that the board is going to make is the board is appointing a director. You're not appointing this person to the existing officer role that Mr. Biller holds. So the board has the option, once this appointment is made, to reorganize your current positions. So that person's not necessarily stepping into that same officer role. So that's something you're going to want to think about
That's very interesting.
before that meeting.
Very interesting.
So, John Hermes stated appointment is the best choice, and the residents have already voted great candidates. Directors are not personnel, should be done in open session, just like an election. Mr. Hermes, we did get a legal opinion on this matter, and the association's counsel has confirmed that the deliberations and the discussions specific to the candidates, including the interviews, can be done in a closed session. So we do have that in a written legal opinion from counsel. John Bailey said, oh, I think we already read that one, excuse me. Jeffrey Clark stated, will club OTG board members be allowed to vote on golf member director? If yes, will they agree to abstain to maintain the integrity of the original voting process? Well, all board members will vote on that appointment. So because we're doing an appointment and we're not doing an election, every remaining board member still in their seat will vote on this appointment.
And you will not know the votes.
Correct. Let's see. Karen Eckert states, if we don't have the December 8th annual membership meeting, then 2020 will not have had an annual membership meeting at all. Is that right? And yes, that's correct. And when you have a turnover situation like you did, where you had a membership meeting and a turnover meeting so close, it's acceptable under statute to delay that a couple of months. So you're just fine. You're well within your statutory rights to do so. John Bailey is asking, will the past election result be one of the criteria? And I believe the answer to that is no, not necessarily. You didn't have to run the last time in order to be considered.
Well, according to our legal counsel, that doesn't necessarily have to be a criteria. That could be a criteria that's considered in closed session, but it's not required.
Okay. Carrie Psalm states, board must decide prior to vote how to break a tie vote. Carrie, actually, according to statute, a tie vote is a no. So if we have a tie, it doesn't pass. So if we get down to the wire in appointing a candidate and you're split 3-3, you're going to have a vacant seat. So unless you have a majority to appoint, you won't. The tie. There is no tie-breaking vote. It's a no.
That's correct.
Unless there's a new motion. John Hermes from Catherine Hermes states, so golf members lose representation? No, they're not losing their representation. A golf member will still be appointed to this role. So in answer to that question, no, you're not losing your representation. And in fact, you're getting your representation sooner by appointment than if you had to wait for a 60-day election process, which would really turn into probably more like 75 by the time we got everything pulled together and the location and everything. So
You just said if there's a tie, there will not be an appointment. So the question is valid.
True. Okay, good point. Yes. If there's a tie, it could remain vacant unless somebody else made a different motion for a different candidate and perhaps that one passed. So yes, that is the potential. Thank you.
So we have a motion. We had a second. We had discussion. Any further discussion? If no further discussion, let's vote. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We will have our annual meeting on February the 1st, 2021. At the same time, we will have our annual election. With that, I think we're going to, what do you think we're going to, we need to, yeah.
I am going to suggest that we table the community standards, landscape modification, landscape maintenance, and the document revision. These documents are a total of 30 pages long, and it's already 8:33, and I don't think any one of us wants to be here till midnight. So my motion is that we table the proposed document changes as well as the document revision control.
You live 5 minutes away.
Before we, thank you, we accept that. I don't think we have to vote on that. I could just say no. No. Before we adjourn, there is something in the golf topics that Sandy needs to correct, and I will turn that over to her.
So I just wanted to clarify, someone asked the question if how the golf rates in the proposal tonight compared to the golf group's proposal. And I said that the golf group's proposal, the rates were higher. And in some cases, that's not the case. They were higher in terms of, I'm sorry? Right, it was not all one-sided. There were several areas where the golf rates in the proposal, for example, public and golf member guests were higher, as well as the walker fee. So I just wanted to clarify that. And go ahead.
So, thank you all. I will take a motion to adjourn. Oh, what? Wait a minute.
I do. I just wanted to take this opportunity. This is Dick's last meeting, and I just wanted to say thank you, Dick, for your many, many, many contributions to this board. It has been an absolute pleasure working with you over the course of the last year, so thank you.
Here, here.
Thank you, Sandy, for stealing my thunder on that. But I would say, before I was ready to adjourn, I was adjourning, but I remembered that Vic Billard has been here for more than a couple of years. But the work that he's done and is just, you can't really measure it, and it's just it just shows you what this community is and how passionate the people are to serve this community. We have over 100 volunteers, and they're working very hard. And it's just because we want to have a better place, and I think we're getting to a better place. I know Dick and Tina will be getting to a different place. I know it'll be better for them, not necessarily for us. But we, and all kidding aside, we couldn't ask for a better colleague. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion we adjourn.
We're adjourned. Done.